This is a response to Peter Osuchowski, one of our Patreon supporters, and it's a pleasure, as always, to get these questions and to provide, as best I can, an answer. Peter asks, quite rightly, about the financing for worker co-ops. To start a worker co-op, and just as much to convert an existing capitalist business into a worker co-op, that requires money. And the question is, where will the money, where will the financing, where will the capital come from if we're going to be pursuing a transition from a capitalist economic system to a democratized enterprise system where the workers themselves own and operate in a democratic way the business of producing goods and services? Before going into the question of a socialist banking system, which Peter asks about, I want to make it clear that because worker co-ops have been around quite a while and have had these financing problems, they have also found financing solutions, and a brief review of them will be the way to get into Peter's question. First, there are commercial capitalist banks that have in the past lent to worker co-ops, which have been able to repay those loans, to pay interest during the while that the loan was in effect. So there are, in fact, commercial capitalist banks who have a good history of lending to worker co-ops and are prepared to do so again. You need to be connected to them. We might be able to help you in that regard. I mean Democracy at Work. But they exist, and so they can be found. The second thing is to understand that there are diverse sources of capital. I know of examples where worker co-ops got going because a local social organization or a local church of one kind or another, or a local philanthropy or a local nonprofit was willing and able to put forward some or all of the money needed by a worker co-op to get going. Sometimes that was a grant. Sometimes that was a loan. And sometimes it went to help money put up by the individual workers involved here who were willing to be at least partly the investors in a worker co-op. Then the third, more recent development has been using the internet. GoFundMe, one way or another, has been a way to collect money from people who want to see worker co-ops grow and flourish as an important alternative to the capitalist enterprise, a way forward for social development beyond capitalism. And that way of raising money has been remarkably successful. But yes, Peter's right. It would be important to organize a systematically committed institution. Call it a socialist bank. Call it a worker co-op bank. It doesn't matter. The idea is it could be itself a co-op committed to raising money from people who believe in co-ops and then lending it to the actual co-ops with a modest interest rate to give the co-ops a boost, and the modest interest rate that could pay the expenses for such a socialist bank, if you like, or a post-capitalist bank, and a little bit for the bank itself so it could grow and service more and more co-ops. It's a good idea. It's now on the agenda in the same way that worker co-ops are. Thank you, Peter, for the question, and I hope it is an answer you will find interesting and worth pursuing.